My wish for humanity in 2025. Welcome to this special New Year's episode of the Astin-Gregory podcast, the show where we explore how you can live free and prosper. If you're brand new to the show, please do hit subscribe on your favorite platforms to keep up to date with our latest content. Today, I want to share a personal message for 2025, a reflection on where we've been, some thoughts on where we might be heading, and an exploration of the values that I believe we must reclaim in order to create a freer, fairer, and more peaceful world. As we step into 2025, I believe we're at a pivotal moment in history. We're midway through the most transformative decade in recent memory, a decade defined by extraordinary challenges, but also immense opportunities for growth and renewal. And I now believe that humanity stands at a fork in the road, with one path that leads us further into division, control, and disconnection, and the other that invites us to reclaim what is most essential: the values of freedom, the principles of peace, and the pursuit of justice. These are not just abstract ideals. They are the foundations of a meaningful, thriving, democratic future. And I believe that this moment calls for clarity, courage, and conviction in order to restore these ideals. So in this episode, I'll be sharing my reflections on 2024 and the decade so far, and my wish for humanity going into 2025 as we explore how I believe we can take personal responsibility for shaping a brighter future. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about our Live Free and Prosper online community, a membership platform in support of the show where you have the opportunity to get closer to the conversations with early access to all of our episodes, the chance to tune into live recordings, and much, much more. To find out how to get involved, go to danastingregory.com/supporter, and you'll get all of the details on the page. And right now, you can join as a founding member for just £3 per month. Alrighty, let's get into the show. I believe that this decade has become a decade of reckoning, a decade that has exposed the fractures in our systems and society, seeing a deepening of the polarization that began in the 2010s, a growing erosion of trust in the institutions and political systems, and the consequences of a world driven by profit over people. But this decade has also brought clarity. It's helped us to understand that the freedoms we take for granted can be easily eroded if we don't actively defend them. It's highlighted that we need to hold institutions accountable. We need to take the systems and corporations and leaders to a higher standard, and revealed the real dangers of division and how mistrust and fear can pit us against one another, distracting us from the real work of building a better future. Now, 2024 was a wake-up call, and now, as we enter into 2025, we face a choice. We can either continue down the path of disconnection and control, or we can choose a different way forward, one that prioritizes freedom, peace, and justice. And I believe we have the power to make this choice, but it starts with each of us. It starts with reclaiming the values that matter most. Let's start by looking at freedom. Freedom is the foundation of everything. It's the ability to think, speak, and live without coercion or interference. Yet in recent years, we've seen freedom come under threat, not just through overt censorship, but through a subtle underlying pressure to conform, to stay silent, to accept grand narratives without question. Freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility, and it's something that we must actively seek to defend and protect by standing firm in our principles, by refusing to be swayed by fear, and by empowering ourselves and each other to do the same. Let 2025 be the year that we reclaim freedom in its truest sense, not as a privilege for the few, but as a birthright for each of us. And let's ensure that it remains the cornerstone of a thriving, democratic society. Now let's talk about peace. Peace isn't just the absence of war. It's about ending the conflicts that divide us. Whether those conflicts are fought on the battlefields or through polarization and mistrust within our online and real-world communities. Right now, not only are we witnessing the greatest number of major conflicts since World War II, we're fighting a war of ideas, a war of identities, a war of us versus them. And these divisions are tearing at the fabric of society, leaving us more disconnected and vulnerable than ever before. But true peace begins within, begins when we choose understanding over mistrust, compassion over fear, and unity over division. In 2025, let's renew our commitment to peace, not as a passive acceptance, but as an collective effort to rebuild trust, heal relationships, and create harmony in our lives. To do this, however, we also need to be able to find justice. So let's make 2025 be the year that we seek justice for the crimes of the COVID chapter, a defining period in our history that revealed uncomfortable truths about how power is wielded in our modern world. We've seen how the pharmaceutical industry and its enablers, its funders, have prioritized profit over people, causing harms that cannot be ignored. We've seen how secrecy and a lack of accountability has allowed systems to act without oversight. And in 2025, let this be the year that we demand justice, not out of revenge, but to ensure accountability, transparency, and reform. Because justice is about fairness. It's about learning from the past so we can create a future that truly serves humanity. Now let's get a bit more personal. One of the things I've observed over the past couple of years is the rise of two polarities, cynicism and what some call hopium. Cynicism is the belief that nothing can change, that the system is too broken, that it's all too hopeless. And really, it's a defense mechanism that shields people from disappointment, but it leaves them paralyzed, unable to act. On the other side is hopium, what I call blind optimism, that clings to comforting illusions that someone else will fix everything, that some politician or outside actor will find a magical solution, and all we need to do is wait and see how they deliver change. Both of these extremes are traps that lead to inaction, and neither will create change. What we need now is optimism rooted in responsibility. This kind of grounded optimism acknowledges the challenges that we face, but comes with the belief in our ability to overcome our challenges through action, courage, and integrity. So in 2025, let's reject cynicism and false hope, and instead choose optimism, an optimism that can empower us to take meaningful steps towards that brighter future that each of us holds dear. And let's talk about the final piece here, individual responsibility. At the heart of all of this is true individual responsibility, because real change doesn't come from institutions or governments or politicians. It begins and ends with us. So in 2025, let's take responsibility for the choices that we make, for the actions that we take, and the example that we set. Each of us has the power to influence the future, not through conformity, but through courage and through principled action. This is how we reclaim freedom, peace, and justice, through our own leadership, by our own words and deeds. So in closing, 2025 has the potential to be a turning point in history. The challenges we face are real, but the capacity that we have to rise beyond them is phenomenal. So this year, let's leave behind the patterns of behavior that no longer serve us, and let's reclaim the values of freedom, peace, and justice, and commit to living them in our daily lives. This is my wish for 2025, that we have the courage to take responsibility, the clarity to act with purpose, and the conviction to believe in what's possible. Let's make this the year that we individually and collectively live free and prosper. Thank you very much for listening to this New Year's address. Please do share this if this message resonates with you. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, then I do encourage you to come and check out the Live Free and Prosper community. Right now, you can join as a founding member, and you'll get early access to all of our episodes, the chance to join our live studio for our interviews that we have got coming up, and join and be part of an inspirational community of free thinkers. So go to danastingregory.com/supporter to find out how to join us. So cheers to the onwards journey in 2025. Happy New Year to you. Live free and prosper.